Here's what you can look forward to on this episode of The Nice Guys on Business.
As a career coach, I teach the first step is building self-awareness. There's multiple studies that have been done. They'll look at high-performing CEOs, and the ones who perform the best, it's not their socioeconomic background. It's not where they went to college. It's not an Ivy League education. It's not how much money they are currently making. It is self-awareness.
So tell me, when the time is right, will you be ready for The Nice Guys on Business? Oh, yeah. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by TurnKey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
Nice Guy community, there was a time, if you remember, when college counseling was simply a visit to the guidance counselor. You guys remember that? A decision and then an application to your choice of pretty much any college that you were interested in attending. Well, that process is probably not real world in today's climate. Admission competition, academic achievements, and a process which can oftentimes be overwhelming without professional support. Well, enter Lisa Marker Robbins. She's been the guiding light and support for thousands of college-bound hopefuls. Here to talk about how she does, what she does, and all things in between. Lisa, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business.
Hey, Doug. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you here. I don't think you have been here before, have you? Or maybe you have.
I have not. First time experience.
Long time listener, first time caller, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. Well, somewhere around episode 1600, this will be out. I cannot believe
amazing.
On February of this coming year, in February 2025, Strick and I will be celebrating our 10 years of podcasting, and a little old book called Nice Guys Finish First started it all. Why did you even get started? We'll talk about your business in a second, but I know you're a podcaster. I know you're with our production company, which we well appreciate through the years. Why did you even start a podcast to begin with, Lisa?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you to you, Strick. You guys are my mentors. I wouldn't be able to do it. People are always like, wow, how do you do a podcast? I'm like, oh, you overestimate my capabilities. I can show up and have a conversation, but I have a whole team behind me, and I would not be able to do it without you guys. So thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Well, the podcast is called College and Career Clarity. And if anything that we say today, and of course Lisa says today, it piques your interest in what she does, how she does it, I'm going to put a link in the show notes so you have that and access to her website as well. But let's dig into the content. So you went through.
Why did I do the podcast?
Yeah,
you want me to
okay.
do that one?
Yeah, okay, sure. That'd be great. Sorry, I either stopped you or you gave me enough pause for me to interrupt and just keep rolling.
You asked, and then I thanked you for all your great work, and then
that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted, Lisa.
You teed that up great.
Thank you.
So I had a previous company that I had for nearly 26 years. I just sold it in July. And my newer company, Launch Career Clarity, Flourish Coaching, was pulled out of that. And at my old company, 25 years, there wasn't barely an internet back then.
Right.
Website. So the first thing I started doing to try to help educate and have good conversations with people was a blog over at that company. And that blog's still going. Mm-hmm. And so when I pulled the career development, career coaching for teens and young adults out of that company, because I knew that was an asset that was not sellable with that company because it's very dependent on me and my talents. Mm-hmm. And my passion, and it's what I love. So I pulled it out, created a new company. And so I naturally just started blogging. And I very quickly, this was in 2021, and, we started in May 2021. I sent my first newsletter, have not missed a week since then.
Incredible.
And, I just doubled down on that weekly content to connect with people. And I was writing blogs. And then a couple of times I had a conversation with somebody on Zoom, and I just put the recording on my blog. Mm-hmm. And then pretty soon, by July of that year, I'm like, I'm tired of writing. I love having conversations with people. Right. They're so easy and natural. It's just easier for me, or for somebody else, writing a blog would be easier. So I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to do a podcast. And I had to put it off until I couldn't launch it until January of 22 because I was also writing and recording my course for my college major in career coaching. And so that's how I got into it. I went to a podcast because I thought it was going to be easier, and it has been.
Well, I can remember, and thank you for sharing your journey and some of your backstory. I can recall, at least in my own experience, I was writing for HuffPost for almost 3 years, 150 posts. And every Sunday night, because the blog would come out on Monday morning at 8 a.m., every Sunday night, I'd get like the hives. I would be like scared shitless. I'm like, what am I gonna? I've got to be able to create this content and have it come out. And I didn't even know the subject matter, and there was no Chat GPT to help at that point. And so I'd sit down probably for 90 minutes or 2 hours and agonize over the writing. And I always try to do everything with a little humorous spin, so it would always be like a little lesson that I learned that week or that month in my life, and how I could put that spin on building a business. But when I started podcasting, there was never, I mean, Strick and I, at our busiest, we were doing 5 episodes a week. Now, can you imagine that? So,
no.
But I've never run out of like shit to say. I always have able to have a great conversation with Strick. And then our Monday episodes, which are these episodes like the ones that you're on right now, it's almost like I get to tee up a free coaching session for Doug.
Yeah.
So meet with these wonderful people like yourself, learn a whole bunch of stuff I didn't know before. And then I have all of this knowledge and wisdom that I can go out into the world and be dangerous enough to say, well, I don't know anything more about that, but I want you to call Lisa because she knows everything about it.
Well, it's so true. Like I say all the time, my world is bigger and better because of my guests. And so I know some people do solo podcasts. I rarely do solo episodes. Those give me hives, by the way. But I do.
Well, your friend John Putnam, that's all he does for the most part. And I'm like, I can't understand how. I mean, look, I appreciate the production business and I love being able to help him, but I keep coming back to him with, don't you want to expand and have guests? He's like, I'll get the guests when I get the guests. But I could not imagine.
Like it's easier, right? I had to do one. So I did one a few months ago, and it's not that I have to. It's like sometimes it's just natural that, and you know me, I'm batching way ahead. Like right now, I'm done through December practically recording. So it's not like, oh, I need a filler episode, but there's just some topics that it makes sense for me to do a solo on. And every time I go into them, and I'm like, I have hives going into it because it's easier to have a conversation with an expert and somebody who is just fun. And then I get there and I think, oh, this is going to probably be 10 minutes. They always end up like 20 minutes. Most of my guest episodes are 30, but my solos are 20. And I'm like, oh, okay, I could. And then this year, one of my earlier ones this year is actually, it looks to be the most popular episode of 2024. So I'm like, dang it. That means I have to keep doing solos when it makes sense.
Definitely.
There's few and far between.
Well, that's cool. And I appreciate the fact that you do what you do. I want to make a brief comparison to, and I'm not comparing you at all to a wedding planner at all, but I'm going to make the comparison about a wedding planner. Every bride that's out there that goes through the wedding process, when they're done and they're married and they had such a great experience with their night, they want to become a wedding planner because they have all this experience of one under their belt. And when you went through the experience of either applying for college yourself or applying with your kids to colleges, did that give you the motivation or inspiration to do it? Or did you strategically work on this career as an end point just because of your love of the environment?
Right. Well, it was never the end point. This was never the goal. As a career coach, I teach the first step is building self-awareness. There's multiple studies that have been done. They'll look at high-performing CEOs, and the ones who perform the best, it's not their socioeconomic background. It's not where they went to college. It's not an Ivy League education. It's not how much money they are currently making. It is self-awareness. And so when we start to build self-awareness, and then the next step is building career awareness, but we're not going to make really dumb choices. We are going to make informed choices that really are helping us design a future instead of just drift into it. Mm-hmm. And so if I go all the way back to the 1980s, when I was applying to college and thinking about it, one of the things that is a through line for me that I had self-awareness around is I love helping other people. I actually really like people call me crazy. working with teenagers and young adults. Not always the easiest age group, but I would 1,000 times over rather have that age group than a bunch of elementary kids.
Yep.
I started out as a teacher, but I'm still a teacher at the heart of it. Like my podcast is teaching, my course is teaching, and I'm still serving teenagers, young adults, and really by ways also serving and supporting their parents. And so that hasn't changed at all over the years. I just set out to support that age group. And so one of the things I was doing back in like 2000, I started doing the private college counseling. In about 2008, I found that I could build a better college list if we really have certainty around the end goal of college. And instead of just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what what fits, or picking for great weather or football teams, that's where a lot of kids go, and that does not produce the best outcomes.
Well, it's such a pliable age, though. I mean, I think about myself when I was going through high school into college. It was a given that my parents never even gave me an option. I just thought it was just a given. Maybe a Jewish upbringing in a higher end or upper middle class. Maybe that's just what is expected of you when you get to 12th grade. And I can remember probably 90+% of our school graduating seniors probably went to college from my school. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to college. So I applied where my parents told me to, University of Maryland at College Park. That's where I went. Didn't really even matter what my SAT scores were. I think I just had to sit in on the exam, but didn't have to really focus on the exam, or never focused on extracurricular activities, nothing at all. And I think about what that one key word that you said just in your last response, and it was that word drifting. I think I drifted into my first career, which drifted into my second career, and then my third career as a young adult in my 20s. And then I figured something that I really like doing, building relationships and selling. Those were two things that I really enjoyed doing. And then once I got strategically engaged and had this awareness of where I wanted my career to go, that's when really the success started to find me. When you drift through something like a 9-to-5 job, oftentimes, you oftentimes don't find success because you're just letting life happen to you instead of making life happen. Is that kind of the approach that you take with your students or your clients?
Yeah, it really is. I think, one of the myths that we bust around here is that kids can't figure it out, but with intention and devoting a little bit of time and resources to it, it is very figure outable. I also want to take the pressure off. We are not asking somebody to know what they're going to be at our age, right?
Right.
I always say you're making an informed first step into career to successfully launch into adulthood so that you're thriving and happy. And there will be pivots. Now, if you drift into those first steps into adulthood, you're more likely to have these large swings, like macro pivots, right? Instead of where I didn't drift. There were some constants that I was very aware of in my life, even extracurricularly or just fun things that I would do. I think back to when I was a second grader, and I'm like, okay, to the neighborhood kids, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to be the teacher. Of course, I was going to be the teacher. You sit down. Let me tell you to quit talking. I started a youth group when I was in college for a group of kids that were in a very tiny community and didn't have access to anything like that. And so there was that entrepreneurial streak, that education piece, that age group. And so my pivots, I've had 9 of them now, but they're micro pivots, right? I didn't have to know. We couldn't have done this. I couldn't have set out to do this in 1987 when I was graduating.
Right.
And you also bring up the fact that good Jewish upbringing, and you're just expected to go to college. My 26-year-old started college and didn't finish college. And he said to me recently, I'm like, why, if you really thought you didn't want to go, which I, as a mom, go oh, I don't know that he didn't really want to go. But he's like, well, gosh, with what you do for a living, what option did I have? And that's really why I'm pivoting more to supporting everybody, because not all of my kids went to or finished college. My youngest just graduated college, and so I just got to pay a raise. But although now she's engaged and I'm getting ready to pay
there
for
you
her
lost
wedding,
it right there.
So
Came and went all in one.
And then I'll have grandkids. Whatever. I'll never get a pay raise. But, it's really about figuring out who you are and what the world of work looks like. And so even that son of mine who said, like you said, your parents didn't have the conversation. He and I talked more about where, but not if. And so I don't know what my role was in that, but guess what? He dropped out of college and he's still working as a computer network engineer because that's a job that you can do without a college degree. Some you can't. But let's be aware of what those are.
Well, a couple things. One of the things I had shared with our community in the intro was that it's not as it used to be in the olden days when I was applying to college. But then I think about it and think about the access to education, not higher level education, but just online education is so prevalent now. Is that making it easier or harder for rising seniors who are going to college next year to apply, or does it make the competition so much more grand because everybody has access to this great thing called the internet?
Yeah. So when it comes to applying to college, all that has done, as well as test optional policies since COVID, is open the floodgates to the number of schools. When I was first doing this work back in the early 2000s, kids would apply to 3 to 5 colleges on average. And now, it's 8 to 10, 11. I hear lots of kids applying to double digits. I don't encourage that. So, and then when schools are getting more applications, then there's more competition. And so, quite frankly, I don't think that that's helpful because that just leads itself to overwhelm, right? And so, more choices are not necessarily better. And, one of the things we do, I'm a master certified Berkman personality coach. And every student I work with, and actually all of my adult coaching clients, executive coaching clients, all take the Berkman assessment. So it really leans into wiring. It's a very unique tool. It's not just how we behave, but it uncovers what we expect from other people in our work environment. So there's certain natural wiring that people have that too many options are just going to overwhelm them and they're going to freeze up. And then there's others that it just wouldn't bother them. And so that's, it's really a lot of that's personality based. So I think more options overall, I would say, is not necessarily good, but there's certain personalities for whom it really isn't good.
I find I'm a master pain in the ass detector, and I can do that very quickly with not only prospective clients, but for current clients as well. I feel like, there's so many certifications like DISC certification and all the others that are out there.
Yeah.
And I find that people fit into these molds quite nicely. You probably know almost instantly when you meet somebody if they're going to make a good client. I want you to think back to maybe those early days when you first were getting started and put out your counseling, your coaching shingle. Anybody with a checkbook was potentially a client, right?
Oh, for sure. Like you're no scared to death to not answer the phone or reply to an email right away back in the day.
So how have you learned to differentiate? Because you have a really good way, you have a really good attitude about business. You're very analytical about how you make decisions. I can see that just through your involvement with our program. Your input is essential to make sure that we get you the services that you need, and you communicate that really well. So I find that a lot of people, when they come into a coaching environment, they have a really hard time with that. They're like all over the place. So how do you kind of focus? How do you focus not only your student clients, but it sounds like you're in the executive coaching world as well.
Yes.
How do you focus them in so that you can get back what you give out as a client? You want them to give to you as your client, don't you?
Yeah. I don't go into it expecting a certain outcome because it's a journey that I allow for that journey and that growth and that discovery to help us figure out the next step.
Right.
And so it is funny, like, the easiest coaching client probably would be somebody a lot more like me, perhaps that's analytical and an action taker and has a really positive attitude and an abundance mindset. And what I found,
and a lot of patience, huge amount of patience.
Yes.
Thank you, by the way, for your level of patience. We learn as we grow ourselves, and you've been there to say, hey, you guys kind of screwed up on that, but it's okay. I appreciate how, we have I'm not going to name any clients. I'm not putting any clients under the bus at all, but we have some clients that kind of lead with that iron fist, and it like makes you feel
It
really
just doesn't
crappy
get you anywhere.
doesn't get you. Oh my. You are so right. It doesn't get you anywhere. And why do people have to treat other people that way? Sorry, I don't mean
Yeah.
to get off in a tangent here, but it's so true. You are what you put out. And don't you understand
Yes.
that?
Well, it's like, I don't care how bad, like if the problem was huge, and even if it resulted in you as the individual going like, you know what, probably not a good fit for me, whatever it is. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm like
I get it.
anything, right?
Yeah.
Probably not a good fit. You can always leave with kindness, and you don't have to burn the bridges on the way out. So like, why wouldn't you just say like, hey, I noticed, I always, and this is one of the things I coach the parents, I'm in a unique position. I sell a service to parents who are paying for it, but
Right.
we are serving an outcome for their child,
Right.
but we're also supporting the parents along the way. And one of the things that I always talk about, and it's harder to remember it with my own now adult children, but is, be curious and ask a question. Even if something's a statement like, hey, you screwed up, like there's no reason to say that ever. Just say like, hey, I noticed, or you know what, I saw that and that made me wonder or think about. It can always be turned into a question, and you're going to get farther, whether it's with your growing up child that you want to. Kids think we want them to be in our houses forever. We really don't. We want to be an empty nester. We love being empty nesters over here.
Right.
So
I have been for many, many years and love it as well.
highly recommend
28
it.
and 31, my kids are. So it's a great part of the relationship. And then they come back to you too. They
They
come back to you
do.
as adults and they start asking like advice and questions. They're like, wow, that's comical that you asked me that question when you used to insult me about that 12 years ago. Whatever.
Exactly. My 26-year-old, I remember so he's my oldest, and I have twins who are 23, and then I have bonus kids that are 30 and 33.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was raising, and I've been with the bonus kids for like 12 years now. So when the kids were growing up, but particularly with my oldest, the one that I just referred to, the computer network engineer,
Mm-hmm.
I would think to myself, oh, do I want to die on this hill? And believe me, like you're a college coach and your kid's dropping out of college and losing their scholarship. Like that's not fun. Right.
Right.
And it's like, do I want to die on this hill? Is this one worth it? And I would always ping forward too, because they say that particularly the male brain is not fully developed until 26
Or 60.
or 60. You can speak for yourself, Doug. And I would think to myself, like, what do I want how intact do I want to be with him at 26? Is this the hill I want to die on? Is this? And so he just turned 26 back in April. And I said to him, I remember I used to always wonder, like at 26, I'm like, here we are. And I think we're in a really good place. And we both acknowledge the rocky places. And we have such a great relationship now. But I think learning, and I made some really big mistakes, especially we all make mistakes with our oldest, right? Like how to get curious instead of directing, how to ask questions. And you can do the same, whether it's your podcast producer or anybody else, right?
Totally agree. And I think for those parents that are out there, you may or may not agree with this. I think we lose our kids mentally somewhere between 12 and we don't regain them until about 18, but then we really gain their respect somewhere around 25 or 26. So you're right in the zone. And that's when both of my kids just coincidentally came back to me around the same time in their mid-20s. And it is great. They're buying houses, they're getting married, they have significant others, and they're asking questions about money, about stuff. And it's like, oh my God, this is what I've been waiting for. Like I'm going to say this for those in our community that have probably heard me say this a lot on the Friday show. I'm probably not the greatest father in the world for a 2-year-old. But man, I know I'm a great father for a 25-plus-year-old just because you're now in the zone for me. Now I'm excited and interested in what you're doing. Not that the plays and all of that stuff wasn't interesting to me, but buying the houses and getting married or getting divorced or whatever it is, those are all the things that I know that I can help with. So welcome to the fold, guys.
Do you have a son and daughter, or?
Yeah, my son is 28 and my daughter is 31.
Okay, tell me this. I feel like our girls came back younger than our boys.
Yeah. I think that my daughter is more like me from a business perspective, she's really ambitious, or she's really entrepreneurial. My son likes the structure of a 9 to 5, and I think part of it was their career choice. Why my daughter started asking questions in her early 20s as opposed to my son, who I just got back around the past few years. And what's cool about it is they're now in the "I love you" phase, which is great. I love that when my kids say "I love you" without me saying "I love you" first. So
Amen.
sorry, I don't know how we got off on that tangent, but it is interesting to talk about your kids that way. I would love your comment on something about like the trades, because right now, with everybody building a home and putting stuff in their house, plumbing, an electrician, a carpenter, a cabinet maker, all of those trade, or mechanic even, those 5 trades are so popular, and people are so rising to the top of the socioeconomic scale just in the non-certified trades like that. I don't even if they have a certification for that stuff. What's your thought about that as we enter this world of so much competition in the college environment?
Well, and there's a lot of narrative out there on like Americans, saying that they no longer, I don't know, esteem college that much. And I did dig into that data. It's more the kids and not their parents right now. And
Right.
And are they really making informed choices? Who knows? But it's interesting, with my own children, with my 3, I had the one who started college, didn't finish, but was able to stay in the same career. Like we did the work when he was in junior high and high school that I do with my clients to get clear on like what he was wired for.
Mm-hmm.
He did the Berkman with me. He did all of that. So we didn't deviate from the career path. We just changed the road to get there.
Right.
Then with my twins, my daughter just graduated with a business degree, and she is in a management training program with a Fortune 500 company. And then you never know what you're allowed to say and not allowed to say. And then her twin, we sent directly to a trade school, a vocational high school. That was very intentional. It was absolutely the right thing. Once again, we did the work. He was on the path. He has stuck with that path as well. So this is why I'm like, we've done this process that I do with 4,000 students, but I have 3 in my own family and actually with my stepkids as well. So when I look at those pathways, I always go back to begin with the end in mind, figure out what you're wired to do, what you would love, what you have natural aptitudes. Like, I could think it sounds really cool to be a doctor. I could even have the personality wiring of a person who enjoys being a doctor. I can tell everybody right now, Lisa Marker Robbins does not have the aptitude to be successful in medical school.
I'm with you on that.
So, it might be fun, but holy cow, I would never make it through. So it's, it's values, it's aptitudes, it's wiring, it's all of it. I am actually, who knows, we might end up having to change the name of the podcast at some point, and you would be part of that process. I've done this work since 2010 with specifically college majors and career coaching and development. Things are changing greatly, as you just said. And we are kind of rebranding. I'm revising my course right now. And I'm going to even revise our funnels into it. And we may even rebrand the podcast because we really don't want it to be college heavy. We want it to just be self-awareness, careers, finding your path. And we are really going after 15 to 25-year-olds. So I firmly, even when I was working exclusively with college-bound kiddos, I didn't believe that was the right path for everybody. One of my kids, I intentionally did not even put that on the menu of options or even go down that road with him.
What do their parents think when you do that? They come to you with the foresight of saying, or the vision of saying, "Hey, I know my kid's going to go to college." They already automatically assume that the earth or the sun revolves around the earth rather than the earth revolves around the sun, so they can't even see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
How do you have to shock them into understanding, hey, look, your kid is not bound for college, and that's not a bad thing. This is just that's not what they're wired for. I love the idea they're not wired for that.
I know we need to go. This is just smart to do with whatever it is. We should go into this journey, specifically this, or like I just mentioned, we've got both of our daughters getting married, one in 25 and one in 26. I talk to the girls about wedding dress shopping, right? I'm like, go in with an open mind. You might actually, and this is what happened to me when I was getting married, you might actually find that something else looks better on you. That, let the lady who works at the wedding gown place give you some guidance because she knows what looks good on bodies and go in with an open mind. And our oldest, our 30-year-old who gets married coming in May, she totally bought a dress that would never one that she had her eye on, right? So let's go into this open-minded and be on the college and career piece. It's okay. Like you could be college curious or you could be shut down, but this is why we want to work with everyone. And let's just start with career and look at the path or paths to get there. Like if you want to be a nurse, well, I guess you could go LPN to RN to a BSN.
Right.
If you want to be an engineer, there's one path. If you want to be a teacher, there's one path, right? But a lot of careers, there's more than one. And my 26-year-old is a perfect example of there were multiple paths for how he could get into IT and computer engineering work on the hardware side. And so I tend to not talk about the college piece anymore. I'm not doing the college counseling piece. I'm only helping facilitate identifying the career, the major if college is involved, or whatever the credentialing path is to get to that career.
Do the parents that are coming to you, are they aware of that before they even have that first conversation with you, or is that a part of the? I'm assuming that's a part of that first conversation that you have with the discovery conversation you're having.
Right. Well, so these days we're serving everybody through an asynchronous course, and then they get live monthly group coaching calls, and they can add one-on-one coaching calls. So it is baked into the journey. And what I find is parents who are dead set on college is the only way, which, I grew up that way too.
Old school. Old school.
Very old school. They can go into that process but they're staying open-minded on the career piece most of the time. I mean, if they're engaging in this process with us, they're not like, oh, my son's going to be a doctor, right? So they at least are open-minded on the career piece. And then sometimes they discover that like a different path is better. But, there's a lot of kids that are still getting college degrees. And I mean, I'm one of those crazy ones. I love to learn. Sometimes I'm like, it'd be really fun to get a PhD because I already have my master's. I'm like, I should go get a PhD. And I'm like, no, Lisa, stop. There are other ways that you can learn new things.
I went to school to get out of school. I mean, that was my only way that I was ever going to find peace with my parents, was to go through, get my college education and get out. I actually did better in college because I had the ability to pick the coursework that I wanted rather than be, driven through chemistry and biology and gosh, math. I sucked at math. I was so bad at math. And so that brought my grades really down because I didn't want to focus on it. I just kind of let those things go in my high school career. I didn't have to deal with math pretty much my entire college career. I went into journalism and writing. And for me, those were, and broadcast journalism. And those were like the things that I loved and excelled at, and always was like on the college radio station, and then got out and started DJing and spent 30 years as a DJ. I mean, all of these things that I loved doing, that I did much better college and post-college than I did in high school. I felt like I became alive when I was able to make choices on my own.
Well, one of the things we cannot deny that when there's high unemployment, college graduates hold jobs. They just do. It'll be interesting to see if that changes as society changes or as the numbers change. We're having a lot fewer kids that were even born, kids graduating from high school, right? Because of the population. So we'll see how that plays out. But unemployment levels are better for college graduates than for high school graduates. On average, college graduates are going to make far more money. Okay, so we can't argue the value. I still firmly believe the value is there. And I would go back now and have different conversations with my oldest, but the conversations and the paths that my other two went on were the right paths for them. There are other reasons to go to college as well. So
Yes. The social implications of going to college were far outweighing the educational components of
there's
college,
social
at least
reasons.
right, right. And I'm
There's
not saying to be a partier. I'm just saying to learn
right.
how social interaction and relationship building work and getting along with people in a tight environment. All of that stuff was essential for me to get into the career path that I'm in because without the relationship build, maybe
Yeah.
I brought to education and to college, maybe I brought that skill set, but I'd never applied that skill set in high school. I
Well,
had very
that so
few
you
friends.
get those opportunities to apply it. It's also as a parent, you and I both can speak as parents of adults. There's a bridge. Like college feels a little safer than just like, oh, at 18 or 19, go move into an apartment and figure it all out. Like
Right,
that
right.
feels scary. So it is baby steps into like leaving the parents' house. So there's many reasons to go to college. Um, it's very expensive these days. The
Oh my
most
gosh.
expensive colleges are actually $100,000 per year.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but it's also possible to make really wise strategic decisions to keep, if you want to only spend $100,000 a year on college, there's lots of ways to do that. It's all about the college list. And so, it's deciding like if you're going to make that investment, what are your values and what is your reason for going? I actually on our live coaching group Q&A call, it was just this past Tuesday, and I said to all the seniors that are in the course, hey, could you guys just write down right now, why do you want to go to college? Put it in an envelope, seal it, and then open it back up next March so that when the acceptances, and sadly some rejections probably,
Hmm.
come in or a school comes in that's going to be more expensive than you guys can afford to do, which I do think there's ways to have a college list where you avoid that as well.
Hmm.
But open that back up so you again are going back to what's my intention here, and you're not all caught up in the rah-rah and the brand name and all the wrong things. And I think what gets written on that piece of paper and put into that envelope is going to look a little different for each kiddo. And I encourage the parents to actually write their kids a letter in the fall of the senior year about celebrating who they are and all the things about them, seal it, put it away, and also hand that to them in March when those acceptances come in. Because so that your kid just knows like your value to me as a parent is not about where you got in or didn't go in or where you go. It's
I
who
think
you are.
I think about reading. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for kind of putting the human element into sometimes a pretty sterile process of applying to schools and writing your essays and doing all of the stuff. I don't even know if they do that stuff anymore, but
They do.
that oh yeah. So thank you for sharing that. It's interesting. I read back. My mom saved probably every letter that I had ever written ever, and thinking back to like when I was at camp at age 12,
Yeah.
she's 91 now, so she'll send me a letter in the mail, and in it will be like a picture of us at the beach or something that I written
Oh,
to her many, many, many decades ago. And what's so great about that is, I don't even know where she's kept these things through the years. She'll pick one out, she'll write a note, and she'll send it to me, and it's like, oh, to know that your son or your daughter has value, no matter what their age is, and no matter what you were going through at the time. Who knows what trauma or whatever I was dealing with at age 11, probably nothing. But at the same time, I think about, man, how great must my childhood have been if I was writing these amazing letters to my mom, and my mom kept them all these years and now is resending them to me. So very similar to that letter that
what a
you just shared.
gift.
Yeah, yeah, my mom is super great that way. I want to talk just for a quick second before I take a slight
Yeah.
right turn and then we'll conclude here. But I want to talk for just a second about what does entry look like into your world if someone has a symptom that they would need to come to you for you to heal? What's entry look like into your world?
That's a great way that you put that question.
Thanks.
So we have a training video that people can go and watch. It's free, it's complimentary. It really creates context to why these are important choices. Because the reality is at 18, our kids are making decisions that can close doors to paths that will never be open again. It can cost us a lot of money, can back them
Mhm.
into a corner that they feel like they can't get out of. And so, how does this work? And we explain that in the video. That also gives them an opportunity that if they want to work with us, right below that video when they opt in, it says how they can enroll in the course. And so it gives them 12-month access to us and to the course. They take the Berkman personality assessment immediately upon getting into our world. And then while they're going through the course and we're sending like reminders and coaching via email, we're also showing up live with them every single month. And so it's pretty simple to get into the course. I really don't ever want college freshmen or high school freshmen doing the course. They're navigating, just getting their feet planted. But these are important conversations if we're going to spend 6 figures or more on college that we need to be having by the time our kids at least halfway through sophomore year. And I always say it's never too late. I mean, there are some options that after 12th grade will be off the table. Some doors to some college majors at some colleges will be firmly closed, that no amount of persuasion, money, begging, anything could open those doors.
So some colleges don't want someone that's taking a gap year between high school and college.
No, they're okay with gap years. But like, I'll give you a good, for instance, Georgia Tech just really created a policy that by and large says, if you didn't apply to computer science as your first choice intended major when you're a 12th grader, you can never switch into that major. That is the same way for nursing at many schools. That is the same way for engineering at some schools. That is the same way for business. So oversubscribed popular majors, business, engineering, performing arts.
Yeah, I can see that.
Anything with field experiences, they have capacity issues. So those are majors that have capacity issues and they're harder to get into. And some of them, the colleges, even like that Georgia Tech policy or UIUC, University of Illinois, they're the same thing for computer science. Creighton University in Nebraska, that's nursing. University of San Francisco, nursing. Biomed engineering at Johns Hopkins, same way.
Wow.
So
wow, incredible. I think about at 17 when I was a senior in high school. I believe at 16 I was just getting out of my diapers, so I had no way of trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to do. That would have been really hard. But thinking back now, what my career path would have been, I probably would have gone to a trade school. I probably would have.
Yeah.
I enjoy my hand in machines way too much not to either be a mechanic or somebody that's working on plumbing or an electrician and then do that for a very short period of time, become the owner of that electrical firm, and then just, have a whole bunch of electricians working for me. I see that as totally, if I could look back at what my career, not that I don't love podcast production, but it's like, we've trained all of these people to do what we didn't want to do when we first started TurnKey. And it's the same idea. We just happen to take advantage of an environment that we think is really hot right now.
Well, somebody made a point the other day in an article I was reading in a higher ed publication that I get their newsletter every week. And they said, like when you and I were in school, 70s, 80s, it was called industrial arts.
Right.
They took the art out of that and they just started calling it shop, and then they got rid of it. And so that was part of what started to take us down the pathway of not valuing those types of jobs, educations, things like that. And I totally agree with that. Like they dumbed down the name and then they brought down the perceived value. And now look where we are. We have a shortage of plumbers and electricians and those that actually were bold enough to take that path. They are making huge money, money.
You had to be bold in a high school that had 90% of the graduating seniors going on to college to be one of the 10% that did something other than, probably even of the 10%, fewer of them, less than 10%, went into the trades and the other just got a job. So it was not a popular choice when I was in high school. And it was probably one, I think you're 100% right. It was probably one that was looked down upon at that time that I'm like, why the hell was that looked down upon? It's great. It's so hard. I try to get back into these, my old Mustang and my old Ford truck, and I have an old tractor.
There it is, right?
I love getting into those things all day, every day. And if I could do it as a career, I certainly would. I want to take a right turn for a quick second because I want to talk to the entrepreneurs that are in our community that are building a business. And if you tell me to pound sand when I ask questions like this, feel free to tell me what made you to go somewhere else with the question, and we'll edit it all out magically through this great production company. When you said you were doing something for 26 years, you decided to sell the business. What did that look like? Like, how did you know as not somebody that's in the college world, or in the coaching or executive coaching space, but somebody that owns a business. How did you know when it was time for you to sell that shingle, and how did you know how to price it and do all the things that you did in order to sell your business?
Sure. So that sale closed in July of 2024. And I always knew I was building something to sell. I would say I started the business in 1999, and it still is in the like test prep, college counseling. It's in that space, right? So I didn't like leave to a totally different space. So I early on knew that I was building, it was obvious I was building something that would have value that I would be able to sell someday. But I was really enjoying it for like the first 18 years or so. And I was building a team. You know, we talk about a replacement ladder. So I kept coming up the replacement ladder and had a team under me. And then this college major in career coaching, this career development for teens and young adults that I started doing as a service within that company in 2008, 9. It was a process of figuring it out. But that's where my heart was. And I started to see such transformation. And as an executive coach, I was seeing the same kind of transformation for these teens and young adults as I was for my business coaching clients. And so I was like, I felt just a calling to go all in on that. And I was in 2019, I'm 20 years into my business, and I just was ready for something new. Like, over the 20 years that I had that business, I'd create a new service line. I'd get it all up and running. I'd build out all the SOPs, the curriculums, whatever, and then I'd hand it off to somebody else to run. And I'd done that over and over and over because I do tend to get bored, and I like variety, and I like startup. And so that's how I had managed that for 20 years. And then I got to the point where I'm like, well, let's go bigger. Let's just get rid of the other company that at times, you know, I would get sucked back in, and I was having these feelings like, oh, I would start to feel it in my body, like, oh, I don't want to have to go to that meeting, or oh my gosh, I'm trying to focus on this over here and I keep getting interrupted. And I thought, you know what, it's probably time. And about that time in 2018, I landed in Forbes for this college major in career coaching work, which kind of blew up. And then it was like, there's not enough Lisa to go around at all. I was feeling very stressed. So 19 was the year I said, okay, I'm going to do this. So I met with some brokers early on to just not even say like, will you sell my business? To just say like, what's that process? So educate yourself. Like, what's the process? Have I screwed up over here? Do I even have something that's sellable? One of the brokers I met with said 80% of the people that approach him do not have a sellable business.
Right. They don't have any SOPs. They don't have any,
None.
they have nothing at all. And without them, the business fails. And that's a horrible business to be in. That's like being DJ Doug. It was horrible. I built myself these great golden handcuffs, making a ton of money, but I step out of the business and my business completely flops.
Exactly. So I had already built the SOPs. I already had the staff, but then they did advise me, your books need to tell, the financial books need to tell the story of what you're selling. And part of what was sticky for me that I had to put a lot of work into is I was pulling a service line out of that company and putting it into a new company. So I had to create a new LLC because I wanted that part I was going to keep.
Right.
And so there was a lot of work, but I just got a community of people around me, other people, other executive coaches who are friends of mine. I have a very rich world of that, John Putnam being one of them, and some other friends of his and mine. And so I just kept educating and kept diligently working on it. And then I actually approached somebody in my industry about buying, who was like loosely a competitor, about buying in September of 23. And I thought, we'll see what she says. And she was like, well, let's keep talking. And so we just gently just had conversations at first. And then in 24, we spent 24 like figuring out the deal. So yeah.
Very important, somewhat important, or not important at all. Sounds like you've been married for about 12 years, second marriage?
Second marriage, been married 10 years, together 12.
Got it. So in 12 years, or how important, somewhat or not important at all, the support of someone? I know you had a successful business. You probably didn't need them to buy in or approve or any of that stuff. But how important, just from a psychological perspective, was it to have someone there by your side, behind you, giving you encouragement? If he did that at all, I don't know. But tell me about how that worked.
I would say Rob's role that he played was very much an emotional support during the hard times, right? He has always been corporate America, middle management, corporate America, loves his job, great at what he does. And my world is so foreign to him. So there was he couldn't add anything to those conversations, but he would encourage me to like not stop, keep having the conversations. It's going to be okay. And then I would say like, what if everything goes to hell in a handbasket and we have not, he's like, oh my gosh, you're okay. He would like pull me back in when he's like, you're being a little dramatic there. We're going to still eat. And so he was emotionally supportive. And then having my executive coaching friends and business owners and entrepreneurs, I have a very rich world of people like that. And so they were important from the business side of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they also gave me some emotional support. But so Rob just got to be like my support, my rock, my cheerleader. So
that's great. I've always had support in my life from no matter what I've decided to do, no matter how crazy, call it fakakta, no matter how crazy it is in my world, I've always had somebody, whether it's my mom or my significant other or any of my ex-wives, I had them to support me. I just didn't know like what is normal out there in the world. It sounds like you had a pretty normal, great relationship, supportive spouse. And it's really cool that he doesn't know your world. And I can relate to that also. My first wife was not at all an entrepreneur, completely afraid of anything entrepreneurial, but always there to say, you can do this. It looks like you've done this before. You can do this and do it.
That was huge. And I actually kept pushing Rob to have a stronger voice in this process than he wanted or felt like he should have. I would be like, are you sure you're okay? Like, like this could happen. Like this other thing might not really take off the way I want it to, or I might not sell for as much money as we think. And I'd be like, if you're not in, and he'd be like, this is not my decision to make. Right. And was I trying? I don't know. Was I psychologically
we always try
trying to put it on somebody else?
Drag our partners through the mud with us. Look, it's misery loves company. I think it's the best example.
Exactly. He was always like, whoa, back off. I'm not going to give an opinion here.
Right.
But he would also say like, are you missing like what you've just built for over a quarter of a century? Like, I think you're going to be fine. Like, like look at yourself. Like it's like, this is okay. So yeah, you need people around you. I think it can be different people in different roles.
Love it. Perfect. Great way to end this episode. I want you to share just one quick time, what's the best entry point for somebody to either reach you or connect with your information so they can do that?
So you can email me. Lisa at flourishcoachingco.com. And that's our website as well, flourishcoachingco.com. And if you want that free video, just the website /course, we've got that free video that kind of explains, as much as things have changed these days, how it actually works.
All right. I'll make sure I put a link to everything. I don't know that I have the one for the course. So but right after we disconnect from this recording, I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. I get that from you. So Lisa, thank you for sharing.
Super
I know I took a lot of extra time. I appreciate you sharing and indulging in my conversation of sometimes got a little personal. So I appreciate you taking care of that. Thanks for being here on the show today.
Thank you.
Hey, Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Lisa Marker Robbins. All of her information, including access to her podcast, her website, the free video, and her email will be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
Friday advice and Tuesday interviews with people far more interesting than they are. Fill up your week with the Nice Guys. Have fun storming the castle.